Water is critical for maintaining life on our planet. Oceans, coasts, and freshwater ecosystems provide essential goods and services for food security, economic development, and the well-being of an increasing global population. The Global Environment Facility has worked for over 20 years to address the increasing number of threats to our planet's ecosystems. Every 2 years, planners, decision makers, scientists, and project managers come together to plan, deliberate, and share information on the international waters portfolio of the GEF. The journey from the first IWC event in Budapest to subsequent gatherings in China, Brazil, South Africa, Australia, and Croatia has helped to foster discussions to protect and manage the world's oceans, coasts, and freshwater ecosystems. We now gather on this idyllic small island of Barbados to share experiences and ideas about economic valuation as a tool to bridge the science policy gap.
On the conference topic itself and on this session, because what we are looking at is to capture the best practices and lessons from the project on how do you convince the governments to use this economic valuation as a tool.
I expect that I will learn here, and basically what I'd like to learn most is how we could apply economic valuation to convince our policymakers in coming up with a policy that would really conserve and manage our marine resources and environment.
To be able to get the understanding of how one can do economic valuation and how one can communicate this to policymakers so that decisions are taken based on the right information.
I am really here to learn more about some of the techniques and approaches of economic evaluation for ecosystem services. What are some of the tools, data, what are some of the best practices, as well as to interact with colleagues from different parts of the world who have had this experiential knowledge, and perhaps to discuss some areas of future collaboration.
And to learn and to hear experiences from other international waters projects. What were some of their lessons, what were some of their challenges, and how they overcame it.
What should the projects be looking at over the next couple of years to really challenge themselves, challenge the stakeholders they work with, challenge the governments they work with to really step up and do things better more quickly and more effectively?
Well, I am very excited about the topic, and I think that the topic of economic valuation is very timely because we at the UNDP GEF project are having very little experience comparing to some other organizations in how to value and where to direct each and every dollar, and what impact and what value the action then has, so that value for money that we are talking very much about. And the other aspect of it is that this is a very powerful and probably the only tool to communicate with the governments.
That the International Waters Conference has been, hosted within a small island such as Barbados, and for so many years it's been so difficult to convince the international waters portfolio sometimes that our common shared resources is the Caribbean Sea, and any activity that takes place on land is going to affect our shared waters very, very quickly. So I think it's an opportunity for donors, for partners to see how do we actually link some of the land-based activities to coastal, and it's not as easy for some of the more continental countries to appreciate that linkage. But when you're in a small island and you have a rainfall event in the hills an hour ago, you see the impacts directly in the sea.
Let's stand back and evaluate. Let's put figures to the values of our marine, coastal, and freshwater ecosystems. Let's immerse ourselves in best practices and innovative approaches to protecting and managing the ecosystems that sustain us.
It is my distinct honor to welcome you to Barbados on behalf of the government and people of Barbados.
Making IWC7 work will depend on your active participation over the coming few days. Small Island Developing States, or SIDS, require special attention in our quest for a sustainable planet. They are small, often remote, and always vulnerable. The impacts of climate variability and change pose an unprecedented threat to small island developing states, not only to their human populations, but certainly to the unique biodiversity found on many of them. On the first day of the conference, expectations run high at the prospect of participating in the first IWC event to be held on a small island developing state. Opening speakers eloquently welcomed participants and set the agenda.
On behalf of the government and people of Barbados, I warmly welcome you to the island of Barbados on this occasion of the 7th Global Environmental Facility Biennial International Conference.
This has always been an inspiring gathering of the minds, of projects, of solutions that come together every 2 years to talk about international waters in closed settings where we can exchange experiences. So this year, economic evaluation is the theme that runs through the conference as one of the themes we want to look at, and bridging the science and policy gap. This is the first time that we have the privilege to be in a small island development state.
As highly vulnerable countries, small island developing states have little latitude for wastage in time, effort, and resources in all spheres of their respective development agendas.
The message was clear: more must be done. We are here to participate, collaborate, and learn from each other. Sessions throughout the day reflected some of the key achievements and additional tools and applications for economic valuation. The first session began with deliberations on replicating good management practices in the wider Caribbean.
What do we want to see within 10 years from now? We want to see strengthened governance, much better integration and cooperation among all agencies and countries.
We anticipate that through our capacity building of professionals, through online courses, through links with universities, we will have a professional cadre that can continue this work.
The next session involved an update of key results from the GEF IW portfolio over the past 2 years.
Today, the objective of our session is to celebrate some project successes.
And if you could discuss how you structure your projects so that you have both the high-level, top-down agenda, but at the same time have an impact on the, at the local level.
I guess at the community level, where we thought we could have done better is giving communities access to or empowering communities through their own funding sources, hence our agreement with SGP to try and link those small grant projects at the local level.
The whole morning opening was really giving emphasis of the needs and the future development of the GEF programs. So it's very critical, and I think that's very important.
It was interesting to see the sort of thinking that's going on with this, and people looking at, something's going on in this region. I've always wondered about, for example, the question on how do you guys coordinate these different programs, and seeing those sorts of questions and seeing the level of thinking that's evolving as GEF matures more and more within the International Waters Program.
Energies ran high as results from the weekend's targeted workshops were presented and enthusiastically discussed.
Instead of telling them that, we found a couple of papers where they were putting an economic value for carbon sinks.
Careful of social valuation as well.
This is a very nice example, yes.
Yeah, we didn't talk about economics, but the most important thing for the 4 countries, Egypt, Chad, Libya, and Sudan.
The final session of Day 1 reviewed recent governance frameworks for management of international waters.
To go around or to sort of address lacks in legal frameworks.
Continuing the theme of showcasing achievements, the Innovation Marketplace was opened.
A
great question that we got at the end of the presentation today was, how specifically are we really able to change behavior?
And we had a wonderful session in the morning, and our session's name is the Remote Sensing Technology Supports Integrated Water Resources Management.
I mean, now I can see that there's so many people working very, very hard, considering many issues, and there is really no need not to speak together. So I bring home a lot of friendships.
A film festival featuring IW projects ended the day on a cheerful note.
I encourage you all to take another sip of your drink, and we're going to start with the first movie.
Communities are increasingly concerned about the health of their watersheds.
We turn to the Caribbean Wastewater Project, the CREW project, which focuses on work being done on wastewater treatment and management of wastewater throughout the Caribbean.
And I'm really very pleased to accept the first place on behalf of the entire crew and on behalf of IDB, UNEP.
While there's been an increasing concern from the international community for SIDS, these concerns now need to translate into action like never before. Day 2 brings an air of excitement as site visitors fan out across the island to explore real-life examples of environmental governance in Barbados. First to hit the trail is the group exploring land use planning and management. Visitors are given an overview of the Zone of Special Environmental Control in the parish of St. Thomas, highlighting the importance of integrated research and management in this complex and highly sensitive area. Descending into the cool subterranean wonderland of Harrison's Cave, visitors experience the spectacular karst formations and waterfalls. Stops at Springvale and the rolling landscape of the Barbados National Park in the Scotland district highlight the importance of integrated management and collaboration in water and erosion management.
In 1999-2000, we got together with the Ministry of Public Works and Soil Conservation Unit, and we decided that we have to come up with a plan to try to stabilize the road, and that then involved draining the area around the road.
Who pays for the planting of the trees and maintenance? Is it by government? Is it by the people?
Government.
And how do you ensure that people take interest and continue sustaining that?
The opportunity to exchange views with the people that are working there, because I do have a soil conservation project back in Mexico, and we were able to exchange views on how to build the likely infrastructure, the cost of it, how can we exchange experiences here and there, and that was quite interesting.
The second contingent to set off heads to sites to explore groundwater risks, demand and supply management. Following an itinerary designed to highlight water management measures and augmentation innovations, the group enjoys stops at not one but two rum distilleries. Visits to Bell Pumping Station and Ionics illustrate source water issues and opportunities.
There is a sewage treatment plant, a wastewater treatment facility combined with that, and a most marvelous part, they have the most modern facility in terms of the energy efficiency and also the renewable energies. They have wonderful solar panels attached to the facility, so they can generate quite a bit of electricity for the supply. We liked it very much. I personally, I saw first time the reverse osmosis working in operation, because we've seen a lot of, and we know a lot of theories about the reverse osmosis, and it's a good facility.
The final and largest group of site visitors take to the Barbados beaches to examine coastal zone management risks and responses. Issues highlighted here include cliff recession and setback responses at Foul Bay, as well as beach improvements at the Rockley to Sierra Beach waterfront and Welch's Beach.
Yes, we are building these grimes here to stop the sea from corroding the beaches. Before, it was just a rough passageway, so they use the boardwalk now to make, you know what I mean, make it more beautiful.
With the final destination for all of the site visits to the famous Mount Gay distillery, we end this highly successful day feeling inspired and enthusiastic to continue our deliberations over the final 2 days of the conference.
Well, it's just again great to see the work that the government of Barbados and the people here are doing to address issues around climate change and protect the shoreline not only for environmental factors but to help support the tourism industry. So it's really rewarding to see. And it's also great to see the role that the various agencies that are putting on our conference and their counterpart agencies are able to, the kind of support that they're able to provide as well. So it's great. It was really informative and wonderful to see the island.
We ended in the Marine Reserve of Folkestone, and it was really interesting to talk with these people. And we see many examples of artificial beaches and how they manage to protect the coastline and prevent erosion from the sea. And really, it was great.
So we were lucky enough today to see some great examples of STP work, STP investments and coastal protection. I think they have some very successful cases here, not only STP but also some of the coastal marine protection we've seen today was just impressive. And again, I'm just flabbergasted. It's, you know, when we actually see theory going into practice, it's great.
Hey, that was nice.
Day 3 of the IWC7 follows an ambitious program designed to maximize information sharing and discussion. Partnerships around water management were the order of the day. The day starts off with a much anticipated overview on the draft strategy for the IW focal area during the 6th GEF replenishment cycle.
So the overall goal of the GEF strategy to promote collective management of transboundary waters and getting legal institutional frameworks and investments and trading off and looking at competing uses of water stays the same, and it is still the overriding goal of the current strategy.
You know, how we actually drill down from the policy and regional conventions to actually achieve implementation. I hope that that's something that we can bring to the table.
The idea of global hubs for water practitioners is discussed in the subsequent session on GEF groundwater and surface water communities of practice.
The question is, are we meeting your needs and expectations, both in terms of content and means?
The GEF Transboundary Waters Assessment Program is next on the bill. Panelists introduce the aims and anticipated products of this effort and solicit advice from the IW community on this first global transboundary waters assessment program.
ILEC has an integrated lake basin management process that we've used through the years now to look at governance elements.
Well, the open ocean is defined as that area, that marine area that extends beyond EEZs and LME boundaries.
A key theme of the IWC7, bridging the communications gap between projects and policymakers, receives a large amount of interest and feedback from the IW community in the next session.
What is important? Is it the communication that is missing between the policymakers, the government representatives, and the GF projects? Or there is something else? What is important from your point of view?
We need, first of all, to build awareness about what is really the problem.
Perhaps you could ask the group how many of the other GF projects have such science advisory committees, and I'd like to hear from them. Are they useful? Do they help?
By working with them, one of the key things we've had is we've gotten buy-in from a lot of the different ministries throughout the entire process.
The afternoon of Day 3 ushers in 3 consecutive workshops. One of these is an exciting discussion involving private sector panelists. The session heralds a stimulating path for public-private collaboration within the GEF-IW portfolio.
At least $1 trillion a year contributed to the world economy from ocean-related activities.
There's a clear business driver for harnessing the role of industry in helping us understand the oceans.
Another workshop debate examines the role of the GEF and its projects within a regional political economy.
In detail. Now we can think of different ways of, as you would well know, of addressing that within our region.
A third roundtable facilitates sharing of experiences on the benefits of transboundary cooperation among GEF-IW projects.
I think this is a very good platform for the IW7 to be organized, inviting different projects to share experiences.
It's been useful to me in a way that some of the basins that I'm working with, we are going into evaluating the economic benefits.
And it's been fascinating to learn about the bridging between policy and science and the difficulties that are faced in terms of that translation.
People seem to be doing well even though they have really long days, which is really positive, that they're still here and they're still engaged and they're talking to each other, which I think is indicative of something really positive.
As afternoon discussions taper off, contestants gather for the ever-popular GEF International Waters Jeopardy event.
Okay, first contestant is Joe Smithiaco, Barbados Water Partnership. How many left? Lorenzo, 8. That is incorrect. Sergey, D. That is correct.
The IW Gala event, hosted by the government of Barbados, brings with it a sensory adventure filled with the rich exotic flavors of the island. The welcome opportunity to relax and mingle helps to further relationships built over the week and set the mood for deliberating the path forward on the last day of this phenomenal week. Day 4 ushers in the final sessions of the IWC deliberations. Building on the week's rich and fruitful presentations, discussions and networking events, the morning is dedicated to participant-led workshops. Workshop deliberations throughout the morning cover a range of topics. These include solutions to transboundary management around the water-food-energy nexus, building communities of practice in areas beyond national jurisdiction, data visualization as a tool for project implementation, cooperation with NGOs on knowledge management, the GEF UNIP project to reduce the impacts of land-based pollution, the Floods and Drought Management Project, the GEF Small Grants Program, and the Global Transboundary Waters Conventions. Panelists of the closing plenary reflect on the IWC7 week that was, and their impressions of priorities and opportunities for the years ahead. Closing remarks by the GEF Secretariat and the Government of Barbados remind us of the key issues at hand and of the importance of continued collaboration.
Community to cabinet. We're addressing common pool resources, and as a result, intersectoral governance becomes particularly complex.
Today, October 31st, 2013, signals the end of the 7th Biennial International Waters Conference.
The IWC7 Innovation Marketplace Booth Prize is, you might have guessed it, the Amazon River.
IWOW Award winner is the Coral Triangle Initiative.
I'm so happy because now the small island development states are reflecting on the COP.
Finally, the IWC Cup is handed over to PEMC, who will host the IWC 8 event in 2015.
No, this has been a great meeting here in Barbados. I have been to all 7 of these International Waters Conferences, and while this may not be the largest, it certainly is one that has brought a lot of attention internally within the agencies and tremendous participation of the people who've come here.
This conference has highlighted to me the importance of international and regional initiatives, conventions, as well as commissions, and how those then influence getting activities happening in the countries and at the local level. But we still tend to be putting a huge amount of effort at these regional and global scales, and we need to be really ensuring we're matching those with local and community level effort.
I think the challenge really, especially for small countries, you can't geographically separate water. You can't separate that from your food production and those things, because these are very small islands and you do everything in one single space. So our approaches for management is integrated anyway. And on top of that, you have climate change concerns. So I think the signals that are being sent now in terms of the way the GEF is operating and looking at programs with the countries is to have more of that integrated approach.
We need to move forward. The SDGs are being formulated. We all have a mission in that. So we have the duty to really make this happen, and I think everybody here in the room is part of it. Can be proud of it and hopefully get energized back to move the agenda forward on transboundary cooperation, on groundwaters, on the LMEs, on the lakes and the rivers.
So it's good to attract, I think, the private sector and make that a standard element in each of these conferences, bringing in more parties.
As mentioned in the speech by the Minister, I think though that there's a need for a good bit more support for small island developing states, particularly in terms of groundwater management. That is a major challenge for us in Barbados.
Geographically, every time we come together we learn so much from our colleagues here, and we see so much progress going on. Keep at it, everybody. I think the International Waters family is a very important and very special family globally.
It's been a pleasure to be here with seeing the whole portfolio coming together, celebrating results, sharing, learning, being able to validate that we need to focus maybe more on economic valuation in the coming years.
So we bid our farewells, our spirits high and minds inspired. As we return home to continue our work, we need to ask ourselves, how can we each contribute to strengthening the governance of our shared water resources? How can we promote continued innovation to bridge the science policy gap? And how can we work better to effect positive and lasting change at the local level?
Firstly, you have to say that the communication plays a very important role in the success of the project, both to medium and long term. I think in my personal experience, the communication never be underestimated and should be included since the initial phase of the project, I mean formulation, preparation, and keep during all the entire life of the project. And the implementer should be in contact with the government representative in order to assure the success of the project.
You know, the most important point is that, you know, the decision maker need to have some, what we call, some positive result, or something that can be seen. We are trying to solve this problem in our SAB, that we, in each country, in our SAB, each country try to have 3 pilot projects, so that this pilot project, when it can be easier and it will have some results. So I think also public awareness is very important. You know, Jeff, you have to have some strengths on awareness program, even including TV shows and some supporting some programs in some countries, so that it will create a base for awareness that can be raised to the decision makers. They can see what.
My short answer to your question is more engagement of the country as a whole, rather than just the project sites. And also we install demonstration projects, which really work in Vava'o, the project site, which are composite toilets and also sand filter system for the septic systems. And this has really proven effective, reducing the amount of phosphorus and nutrients coming out of the septic system.
I think it's very important where the project team and the decision makers, representative of the decision makers, are working jointly on this program of work of this project, then discuss jointly the results of this program, etc.
La mejor forma de realizarlo es a través del empoderamiento de las comunidades y después de las comunidades las autoridades locales. A partir de ahí, cómo desarrollar una estrategia en el que los mismos tomadores de decisiones se van involucrados en los proyectos, de manera que exista el compromiso real de tomar cualquier tipo de acción para fines de desarrollo del sector pesquero y el mantenimiento sostenible de los ecosistemas.